behavior driven development. Okay. So BDD stands for behavior driven development. That means depending on the behavior of the um, application, we'll be writing the test cases. Behavior in the sense, let's say we have a scenario where we are trying to write some kind of we have a scenario where we are trying to fill some kind of text value or fill some kind of number value inside an input field. And if you try and if you again click on submit button or you do some kind of other operations, that will provide you some other values. That will generally provide you some other values is known as the behavior of that particular application. Whatever the things that it is trying to return us will be generally known as a behavior of that particular feature or application, right? So depending on the behavior, let's say I'm providing one as an input, then what it is throwing. So that is the behavior when we input a value as one. If you again do a -1, or if you again do some kind of special character kind of things, then what will be the behavior of the application? That is known as the behavior of the application, which we have basically started in terms of deriving a framework given known as BDD Cucumber framework. Okay. Now BDD Cucumber framework, as I said earlier, every framework will have certain type of structure. In the same way, BDD Cucumber framework also have some kind of structure available. One, um, what we have to follow over here is as we had seen in terms of page object model, we have to design a page layer, and then we have to design a text layer. If we have any data, then for data as well, we can create one data layer where we can define all the data management part. And then if we have to generate any kind of report in other tools and technology, let's say for that also we generate one particular reporting section, for example, in terms of Selenium that we recently done. So for that also, you can see one of our reporting part we have generated over here, um, which is like listeners, right? And then again, this is a page layer, this is test layer. And on top of that, if you are trying to create some kind of utility function, then you can utilize a util package as well, as we have seen in terms of over here by using an Excel utils inside a framework, right? So in the same way, BDD also follows some kind of approach. BDD, Cucumber framework, will also follow some kind of approach. BDD, Cucumber framework. Let's try to understand what is BDD Cucumber framework and how does it work in general. Okay, so it will also have some layers where we have created in terms of other framework. BDD also follows some kind of approach, some kind of layer that it will have. The first one is known as page layer. It is similar to the page layer that we have defined for page object model. So here we have gone through with some page layers over here, and where we have created a class, and inside that class we have defined some kind of approach over here, which is you have defined a variable, private variable, public variable. Then we have also made it as initialize it inside the constructor, or whatever the things that we have written inside the constructor is known as locator. And then we have written a method like related to one particular class. Again, for the dashboard, we have written some other things over here, right? So in the same way, BDD follows the similar approach where we also have to go for page layer. What page layer does is here we'll be doing an initialize the locators and method, right? So inside the page layer, we'll be writing locators, generally allocators, and methods related to a page. So this will be again similar to as we have created in terms of page object model. In the BDD Cucumber as well, we will be having a page layer where we'll be writing allocators and method. This will be again for each and every page that we'll be creating. Now on top of this, second, we also will be having a test layer as well. Okay. Second, we'll also be having a test layer. What is test layer? Where we define the test cases. And in terms of BDD Cucumber framework, the test layer will be in the form of feature file. Okay. So in terms of BDD Cucumber framework, the test layer will be in the form of feature file. So that will be written as a feature file. What is feature file? I'll just explain in a bit. So feature file is a file where we generally define a manual testing kind of test cases, where we write like what for one of our example, let's say if we have to validate product search on the application, how do we go about? So what all the things that we'll be writing in terms of first launch the URL, then login inside the application by using valid credential, then again search for a product, select a product, and whatever the operation that we have to do, that we can do. So those kind of things we'll be writing in terms of Gherkin language. The language that we'll be using inside the feature file is known as a Gherkin language. Now, as I said, like we'll be writing in terms of the manual test cases itself, but we will prefix with some of the keyword that BDD Cucumber has given. And that combination of those things known as a Gherkin language. The terminology that it has given is known as Gherkin language. Okay. A Gherkin language comes with few keywords. Okay. So whenever we whenever we try to write a feature file, we'll see again. We'll see in our today's session itself if we get time. Else we'll also see in our tomorrow's session for how do we create feature files, how do we create other things in terms of BDD. But let's try to make a foundation over here that how do we create a framework. So first thing will be a page layer. Second, a test layer where we'll also be writing the test cases will be in the form of feature file itself. Here in terms of BDD Cucumber, the test cases will always be in the form of BDD Cucumber framework. BDD Cucumber frame in terms of BDD Cucumber framework, the test layer will be in form of feature file. Okay. Now, whenever we define a test layer that is a feature file, there we have certain set of keywords that BDD has given, the Cucumber has given. And by using those key, we will be able to write the test cases inside the feature file. Okay. So first keyword that it has given is known as feature. Okay. So feature is generally, whenever we define a feature file will generally be helping us in terms of writing the test suite. Okay. So it will help us in writing the test suite. That means one particular feature file, as we see over here in terms of Playwright, right? This is whenever we work with Playwright or whenever we work with a piece object model, we see that one particular file is known as a test suite over here in terms of Playwright, right? This particular file is one suite file over here, which consists of multiple test cases. In the same way, in terms of BDD Cucumber framework, one feature file will be one suite file over there, which will consist of multiple test cases inside the feature file. Okay. So whenever we start writing the feature file, there'll be certain keywords that it has given, which is predefined. One of them is known as features, which will just generally help us in writing the test suite name. Okay. So example, like feature login functionality of the application that we are trying to check it. Example, like login functionality of the application, or we can also say it as Anyways, like I'll show you the example and then I'll discuss that. Second keyword that it has given. Second, that it has second keyword that we have is scenario. Scenario is a keyword which will help us in writing the scenario name. That means it will help us in writing, in provide the, let's say, scenario name. So this will simply help us in writing the scenario name. Scenario name means, let's say, check whether the login page is working with valid credential and invalid credential and so on. Okay. Then there will be another keyword known as given. Okay. So with all these combinations, whenever we'll be writing a test case in terms of a plain English language, that is known as Gherkin language. Okay. So given is a keyword that it has given to write the precondition of the test case. So whenever you write a manual test case, we'll be designing in some format, right? So we have, let's say we have given a test for, given an application to test this particular login page. Let's say example, to test this particular login page. Now there will be certain things happens in this case. One is you need to have some kind of precondition. What are those preconditions? That means you need to launch the URL. That means you should be on the login page to test the login page functionality, right? So that is known as a precondition. You need to have a URL available with you, right? Then also you require a username and password to enter and check some kind of functionality. So given we'll be using for whenever we have to write a precondition for the test case. That means precondition can be, let's say I am on the login page. I am on the login page is a precondition to test the login page functionality. I have to be on the login page to check whether the login page is working or not. That is known as a precondition. Okay. Second is known as when. When is a keyword which is helping us to write the actions of the test cases. That means given given I am on the login page. When I fill username and I fill password, and then again I clicked on submit button. Okay, so what we are trying to do, we are fill the username, fill the password, and click on submit button. What we are trying to do over here is we are trying to perform some kind of action on element, right? So whenever we have to do some kind of actions on the element, we have to use we have to use by using when as a keyword. So when will help us in defining the actions. And then the next one will be the then. Then should be written for the expected result. What we are trying to expect from the after performing like preconditions and actions, what is the result that we are expecting will go for a then keyword. Okay. So as soon as I click on submit button, that means I have done some kind of action, fill the username, fill the password, and then click on submit button. As soon as I click on submit button, this will throw us an error because everything is empty over here. So that is known as an expected condition, an expected result. That we have to write it by using a then keyword. Okay. And then there are a couple of other scenarios. There are a couple of other keywords that we have. Those are again for writing additional steps inside the feature files. And that is the first one is that we are having is whenever the next one is known as background. Background. Now, what is background? Background is a precondition for the feature file. Background will help us in writing the precondition for the feature file. or the feature. So this is a feature that we are trying to write. Okay. So now let's say we are on the dashboard page. Right? Let's say, for example, we are on the dashboard page. What should be the precondition for us? The precondition for us should be that we should be logging in successfully into the application, right? If we log in into the application, then only I will be on the dashboard page. So complete login functionality itself is a precondition for the dashboard test, right? So that we can write by using a background keyword. Okay. Um, do I have anything open so that I can side by side show you? Background is a keyword that we'll be utilizing for writing the preconditions. Anyways, we'll see it on. And then writing the test cases is not only related to a easy part. We also have to go for the data-driven testing, right? So when we go for a data-driven testing, we have already gone through over here. So at that point of time, what did we do is we received the data from some other data files, Excel, and then JSON file over here. In the same way, whenever we go for writing the feature file, we'll be getting the data. There are different ways in which we can get the data, but one of them is by using, again, a keyword known as scenario outline. Scenario outline is one of a keyword that it has given for a data-driven testing. Whenever we have to do a data-driven testing, we can take the help of keyword known as scenario outline. Okay, you can take the help of keyword known as scenario outline. And then whenever we try to write the scenario outline, that means we are trying to do a data-driven testing. That means we also have to declare few number of inputs, right? And that inputs will go inside an examples keyword. So whenever we write a scenario outline, we also have to write examples keyword over there. Now, examples keyword is for writing the data for the scenario outline. Okay, so this will give the provide data for the scenario outline generally. Okay, so this is by using these keywords, we'll have to write the feature files. By using these keywords, we'll have to write the feature files. Let's see an example over here for writing a simple feature files. Okay. So as I said earlier, we'll be starting it with features, right? So feature can be, let's say, this file or this feature will validate the login functionality. You can give any plain English language over here inside the feature file. Okay. Then there'll be one scenario. The scenario can be something like this. This scenario will validate the login functionality with valid credential. Or in the simple way, you can also check it out. Check the login is working with valid credential. So this is a scenario, right? Inside this scenario, we'll be writing the test case now. So this is to write the feature file name, which is like suite name. This is for scenario where we're trying to write the test scenario. Inside the test scenario, there'll be some things that we see like given one and then kind of things, right? By using a given one and then we'll be writing the pure test cases. Okay, so this scenario will just give the name of the scenario and then again we'll be going to write the test cases over here. So to write the test case will consist of few number of steps, right? So whenever we have to write the precondition, that means given the user is on the login page, we have to be on the login page to test this particular application. So that precondition, we have to write it inside a given keyword by using a given keyword. So however you see, in the same way we'll be writing. So colon will not be over I just wanted to write as a document, so I've just given a colon, but colon will not be there. We'll be writing in the same way as you see over here, which is given the user is on the login page, or given I am on the login page. Okay. When the user enters the valid credential, what will the valid credential? When the user enter the username, let's say enters the username and password. Okay. So this will be a data. That is why I have written inside a angular bracket over here. Okay. So I have just given when a user enter a username and password. Okay. Earlier, before few months or few years ago, we had a keyword also known as and for the BDD Cucumber. But now they have like removed it, and they are saying that this is also comes under a precondition. So you can simply use a when as well. So whenever you have to write any kind of actions, which is like when the user enters the username and password, and again we are trying to write a condition, which is when the user clicks or click on the submit button or login button, whatever it is. So these two things you can also combine inside a function. There is no need to write these two things. You can also write it as when I enter a valid credential, after clicking on the submit button, what will happen? We'll expect user should be able to log in successfully, right? So that is basically the validation. That is the expected conditions that we are writing for this particular test case. Given the user is on the login page, when the user enters the username and password, again, when the user click on the submit button, then I should be, or the user should be able to log in successfully. So this is one feature file that we have written over here, one test case we have written inside a feature file. Okay. For this scenario, we'll have this one. For feature also we'll have colon. Okay, so this is one test case. Now, whenever we have to work with, you see a scenario, right? So there will be a question that what is difference between scenario and scenario outline, right? So scenario is generally helping us to write a single test case and write a test case. And whenever we are trying to go for data-driven testing, we have to use a scenario outline. So scenario outline is generally will be useful for data-driven testing. Okay, so this is a simple example for login page. Now let's say if we are trying to work on for dashboard page. So for dashboard page, all these things will become whatever the value that we have written over here will become a precondition for the dashboard page, right? Whenever we have to do any kind of validation on the dashboard page, we have to log in into the application. So if you see over here inside the dashboard page test, we have logged in into the application first. That we have written inside a before each, right? So whatever you write it inside a before each becomes your precondition for the test case, for the complete suite file, right? So in terms of BDD Cucumber, that is a suite file or a feature file. So for that feature file, whatever the scenario that we have written over here inside the before each over here, that becomes the precondition for the test case of whatever the file that we are trying to create. Okay, so this, whenever we go for writing the test scenario for dashboard page, all these things will go inside a keyword known as background. So how will we write is background? We're writing a keyword known as background. Background. And then inside this background, all these keywords will come into picture, which is given, when, then, and all the scenario that we have written will come inside this particular background. Okay, we'll see an example probably, or probably you might have also seen if you have gone through with us. Okay, so that comes inside the background. This will become the precondition for the complete file itself, complete feature file itself. Because to work with data dashboard page or any other page, we have to log in into the application. Okay, so that's become the complete this feature file for login page, this feature file for dashboard page. You can again you have to define with a scenario, and then let's say for dashboard page you can write some kind of things, some kind of validation. I just say it as dashboard page, and then again you have to start it with given you are trying to search any kind of things and so on. So that will say again. Okay, so that test case, we can also write it over here by using again the same thing, which is given, when, and then. Or if you are going for data-driven testing, then scenario outline, given, when, then, and after writing the scenario outline over here, let's say example scenario outline, you have to also write an examples over here, which will consist of some kind of data over here. Okay, which can be a username, password, and then you can write some kind of username over here, some kind of password over here. Whenever you are trying to write a scenario outline, you have to write examples keyword as well. Okay, so this was related to a test layer that we write in terms of BDD Cucumber framework. So first was page layer, second test layer, where we'll be creating a feature file, and third, that is fine. Now we have written a feature file over here, right? Now we have written a feature file which says that we have written in simple plain English language. Given the user is on the login page, when user does so and so kind of actions, then the user should be logged in. Now, how do we make our code to identify that whatever the step that we have written over here is a test case? Or how do we generally link this with our code so that this will be considered as a test case, right? So how do we link with that? For that, there is one other layer known as step definition. So inside the step definition, whatever the test case that we have written over here, all the test step of a test case will become one particular function. So function name will again be starting with a given keyword, and then inside the given keyword we'll be writing like by how do we write a function? Generally by using a function and function keyword, whereas in terms of step definition, we'll be writing a function like this, given, comment it out. So this will be a given over here, given, and the name of the step will be the function name over here, given. This is a function name. Okay, and inside this, we'll have to write every things for this particular function. Whatever the action that we have to take for this particular function, what we have to do for this this particular step, that means we have to launch the URL. Okay, so for launching the URL, we should have already written a page layer methods. So that page layer method, we can call it over here. Okay, so this becomes a step definition. Inside the step definition file, we'll generally be linking all the feature files steps that we have written over here. So for all the feature files, if any of the keywords are different, then we have to create a another function or method inside the step definition file. Okay. Now these are basically the complete functionality that we have in terms of BDD Cucumber. One is page layer. Second is a test layer, which is similar to the test case that we are trying to write over here in terms of page object model, which here we'll be writing our feature files. And then we'll also be having a step definition, which will link the step that we have defined inside the feature file. Okay. So these are the three things that we generally have to write in terms of BDD Cucumber framework. These are the three mandatory things. Apart from that, we also have some kind of hooks. So hooks we have discussed in terms of Playwright. Right? Hooks is something which will do some kind of preconditions, pre-activity for us to setting up the test case. Right? In the same way, there are some kind of hooks that BDD Cucumber has also given. Playwright has also given earlier that we have already gone through, like before each, after each, before all, and after all. In terms of BDD Cucumber framework, we have again certain set of hooks, like before. There is one hook known as before, which generally says that before each scenario, this will, whatever we write it inside a before hooks will generally be working as a before each scenario. That means before each test. Whenever we define a scenario is known as a test case, right? So before each test, it will run. What all the things we can write it inside before hooks? Example, we can launch browser over there. We can try to not launch the browser. We can also launch the browser, and we can also um, launch the URL on the browser as well. So those kind of things we can write it inside before. Before is similar to before each that we have in terms of Playwright. Okay, so before will run, whenever we write a before hooks will run after, before running each of the test case. After will run after running each of the test case, which is similar to after each that we have in terms of Playwright. Now we also have over here something known as before all. So we have another things known as before all. Before all. So before all is again, there is no difference at all in terms of Playwright before all and BDD before all. It is similar. Before running all the test scenarios or all the test cases, and after all will be after running all the test cases. So before running any of the test cases or all the test cases, and after will be after running all the test cases. Okay. Now it has also given one other things that it has given in terms of steps. It has given like before steps, we can also follow certain things like we have hooks known as before step over here. What is the use of this before step is before running each step of all the test cases or scenario. So before running, it will run before running each test step. Each test step. So one test can consist of a multiple step, right? So if you want to run any particular things before running any of the step, then we can use a before step operation. Mostly we'll not be using an after step is something which will run after running each and every of the test cases inside all the test cases that we have. All the test step inside all the test cases. Okay, so these mostly will not be using, and whenever we have to use, we'll be going for mostly before, after, before all, and after all. So these are the hooks that we have. Hooks is a special kind of method that used to be written to do certain actions that can be performed before or after running the test cases. Okay, now so these are the complete set of instruction that we have inside the BDD Cucumber framework. Now, this is just an instruction that Playwright has given. Whenever we have to design, we have to follow these set of instruction, which is base layer, test layer, step definition. We can step definition. We can also use hooks. We can design our test case in certain way that we are trying to use, like scenario outline, other things and all. And then we have, let's discuss about the things over here. Now we have, now here we are trying to understand BDD Cucumber framework, right? Earlier, the test cases that we have created was in the form of Playwright framework, right? So Playwright is also a framework. BDD Cucumber is also a framework. Now, whenever you start working with TestNG, TestNG is also a framework, and a BDD, BDD is also a framework. So whenever you combine those things, TestNG feature will not be applicable for BDD, and BDD feature will not be applicable for TestNG. Why? Because both of them are a separate framework, has a separate set of instruction. In the same way, whenever you try to combine Playwright, Playwright is also a framework. Playwright has certain set of instruction, certain set of features. BDD is also a framework which has certain set of instructions, certain set of steps that we have to follow to design a BDD Cucumber framework. Now, both of them are a framework. Now, both of them are a framework. When you combine them, both of them will complain that I will not work with BDD Cucumber, or BDD will say that I will not work with Playwright. That means whenever you work with Playwright, specifically at the time of creating a Playwright framework, by going through with like base object model on any framework, mostly we'll be using a base object model over here. At that time, it will work in a better way because we are still using a Playwright framework over here. Playwright says that whenever you have to design a test case, you have to write it inside the test folder. BDD says that whenever you have to design a test case, you have to write it inside a feature file. Okay, so there is a contra, and there is basically a difference between the Playwright and BDD, and that's where none of the features, none of the features of Playwright framework, or none of the features of the Playwright will be applicable for BDD Cucumber framework, because BDD has given certain set of actions where it says that you have to create a page object model, as we do in terms of the page object model framework as well. And if you talk about the page object model and in combination with Playwright, you just have to define a page object and then define a test layer where you can write the test cases in terms of a coding format. In terms of BDD Cucumber framework, if you check it, you also have to design a page layer that we have already designed over here. But you still have to design a page layer over here. And then on top of that, you have to design a test layer, which will be in the form of feature file. And apart from that, you also have to write step definition. Step definition is just to link the feature file that you have written over here, right? So you also have to do a step definition linking for a feature file. Okay. So over the period of time, when you have a number of test cases increasing inside the organization, inside the application, you will have to write a number of